Before we go on, I should take the opportunity actually to thank our partner in this event, powergame.gr, who are invaluable to us as partners in putting this on. Also, I should thank our own economist team out here in Southeast Europe, who have been extraordinary, always, and extraordinary again tonight with their organisation. So thank you to them. Good to have you both here. We're going to try and move away from Greece a little bit. We'll sort of focus in something, but we want to be reasonably wide-based in our conversation. But before we do that, I have an awkward question for each of you. Let's just get that out of the way so everybody can then relax and have their lunch later on. So I'm going to start with you, Boris. Given the great success of Brexit, I assume you think it's a success.
Yes. Do you want me to explain? It was fantastic, and I believe in it with ever-growing passion.
That's not my question, but excellent. My question is, should Greece leave the European Union?
That's a matter for Greece and for the Greek people. And it would be totally wrong for me to come to Greece, advocate something like that when I found during our own referendum how deeply personal this issue is for people. It does go to identity. It goes to how you feel about your democracy. A lot of people in Britain felt European and didn't respond well to the campaign. Myself, I thought the most important thing was, as I was saying in my speech, democracy. You've got to be able to make your own laws. That's what came down from this country, from Greece. And the people have got to be able to decide. And they've got to be able to remove from office the people who are making... The trouble with the EU, much as I love it, is that when the EU passes a law, and it passes many, there is nothing that a single British MP, any British MPs, the British Cabinet, the British Prime Minister, or any British court can ever do to change that law. And that isn't democratic. And there's nothing that the British people can do to remove Ursula von der Leyen from office. Not that we necessarily want to, but actually, you can't change the way it runs. And there's a huge body of law. And the European Court of Justice is the supreme legal authority. And Brexit, as soon as we came out of the EU, as soon as we had the power to make our own decisions, one of the first things we did, and I know your own paper, which was, by the way, my paper. The first job I had was working on The Economist many years ago. The first thing we were able to do was approve vaccinations, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, I think a couple of others, about 5 weeks or so, several weeks before the 27 EU countries, because we were outside the European Medicines Agency. And you won't read that in The Economist, my friends. You won't hear that on the BBC. But it meant that by March 2021, we had vaccinated 45% of the UK population, and almost 100% of those over 80, whereas the average in Europe, in the EU, was about 10%. And we came out of lockdown far faster. We had the fastest economic recovery in the G7. So look, whatever people say, democracy matters. In a globalized economy, the ability to decide your own laws really matters. And it made a difference for us right at the beginning, as soon as we came out of the EU. So, let's see how. I think it's crazy, frankly, having standards decided at a European level about children's toys or cars or food. These should be decided globally. It's ridiculous. And we should have free trade. We should have free transatlantic trade. That's my solution. So I can't remember what your question was.
Whether Greece should leave.
No. Greece should decide. It's up to Greece to decide. And there will be geostrategic considerations that will weigh with Greece that are totally different from the considerations in the UK.
One of the things that will weigh with Greece is their observation of our experience. I think there was a time not so long ago when Grexit was an important word here, was
Well,
a big thing. I don't think it's around anymore. And one of the reasons is because
I know the views of the Economist newspaper. They are not a mystery.
that means you read us, which is excellent. Well done.
Perhaps not as much as I used to. But look, I think that it was always the UK's position. We didn't want to break up the EU. We don't want necessarily to see other countries leave. I just didn't think that it was right for us. I think democracy really, really matters. And when I look at the UK, I see massive potential now and massive opportunities from having freedom to do things differently. And you will not. And one of the crucial things is on migration and borders, where we have the legal sovereignty to decide what we want to do, which we didn't have before.
Okay, let's move on. Evangelos, I wanted to ask a question to you. Shipping is huge business for Greece, a really important part of the Greek economy. At the moment, there are questions about the involvement of Greek shipping and of your own tankers in particular in the shadow fleet that's helping Russia evade sanctions on its oil exports. Is that a fair question that's being asked?
It's a very fair question, but we don't participate at all in the dark fleet. It's something that we did from the very beginning. We tried to navigate safely according to law. And on the other hand, I have always said that all these actions imposed by the SE, and I'm not saying this now, I have said that 3 years ago, and it was not very pleasant, do not make sense, because we see that at the same time, as Boris mentioned earlier, we see India or China importing at huge discount Russian oil, and at the same time, re-exporting the products to Europe, jet, gasoline, and we pay record prices. So at the end of the day, we penalize ourselves, we penalize the economy, and Russia, out of these sanctions, do not face any serious effect, because they still sell oil at discount, but at higher prices. So I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Boris?
Well, I think actually that Russia's, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be speaking with Mr. Marinakis, who's, apart from anything else, he's the owner of Nottingham Forest Football Club, which is incredibly important in my home, amongst many other distinctions.
Well, I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I didn't mention that.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
right.
leave that to one side.
Look, I hesitate to take issue with you, but we've got to stop this war.
I said that.
And the only way to stop this war, Putin won't stop unless he has more pressure put on him. And we're not doing enough to arm the Ukrainians or to give them the freedom that they need to attack the Russian bases that are unleashing murder and misery on Ukraine. We should give them that freedom. But I also think there's more that we should be doing to penalize Putin economically. And I think secondary sanctions on those who are buying, we're not buying them in Europe. Why India, China, Turkey, they're all buying them. I think secondary sanctions are a good idea. I'm sorry to say, be consistent. Don't just do it on India, do it on everybody. And the Europeans should follow suit. The other thing we should do is take the $300 billion that are currently frozen in European accounts, a lot of it in Belgium, and give it to the Ukrainians as an advance payment on the compensation they're owed for the destruction of their country, and allow them to use it to arm themselves and to defend themselves. There is a massive issue of principle at stake. A free, sovereign, independent country, recognized by all of us in 1991, all of its, Greece, Britain, everybody, Russia, China, all those people who are now supporting Russia invading you, they all recognized the sovereign borders of Ukraine in 1991. And if you believe in international law, if you believe in democracy, we should be putting more pressure on Putin. At the moment, he won't compromise. And we're not doing enough, because he thinks he can just grind away. But Mr. Marinakis, he's not doing that well. He's got 10% reduction in his gasoline because of what the Ukrainians are doing. He's lost 1 million people killed or injured in the war. He's still got less than 20% of Ukrainian territory. After 3.5 years, 1 million people, he's still got less than 20% of Ukrainian territory. And the Russian economy isn't doing that well. I mean, I agree with you. You're profoundly, what you say about sanctions and the inefficiency of sanctions, you speak with great experience, and of course you're right. But my answer would not be to give up. No, my answer would be to intensify and to do other things as well. Because otherwise Putin will just grind on, and that's a tragedy. He won't win, but this will just keep going. And all the points that you rightly make about the damage it's doing to the world, they will continue to apply.
Because what I said about sanctions, and they could extend the sanctions, and then they can sanction the products coming from India or China produced by Russian oil. This makes sense. Mm-hmm. The way they do it right now is halfway, and it's only the Europeans that they are penalized. That's what I'm saying.
I understand that point, and I sympathize. But my argument is that unless you intensify pressure on Putin, we won't fix this thing. Zelensky, I know Zelensky has nowhere to move. The Ukrainians want freedom.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you stop financing Zelensky, the war should end.
Well, how?
Because
if you
it's not worth it to have all these children dying every day.
Yeah, sorry.
So
how do you imagine the war ends if you stop financing? Actually, the Ukrainians are pretty good at doing it themselves, but and they could keep. I think you'd be surprised. They can keep going for a very long time without Western finance. But how do you imagine that it will end? It will end. Do you really want it to end with the extinction of what was an independent country? Is that what you want?
Yeah, but what I would prefer is not to see any more children be killed, and let Russia keep some of this territory and stop the war.
But
that's a fair compromise. But let's stop the war. I mean, this is.
So how much of Ukraine? Okay, I'm going to have a real argument with you guys. How much of Ukraine would you hand over? How much?
How much?
How much of Ukraine do you think it is fair to hand over to the aggressor in order to stop the war? How much of Czechoslovakia would you have given to Hitler to stop the war? How much of Poland? How much? How much?
But it's not the same, Boris.
It is the same.
It is
exactly the same.
Because for many years,
it is exactly the same.
USSR,
it is exactly the same.
Something new.
No.
I mean, this is very debatable.
No, it's exactly the same. Hitler in the 1930s said, this place is really German. It's full of German speakers. These German speakers are being abused. They're not having their human. I will go in and I will protect them. That is exactly what Putin is saying about Ukraine. It is identical.
A last word on
it is identical.
And then
I'm sorry. If we're weak now, we will pay for it later on.
I'm
sorry if I'm sounding
on this,
combative
and then we'll
about
move
this,
on.
but I am.
Evangelos. Anything to add to that?
As I said, for me, this war should stop. There have been 3 years that we see innocent children losing their lives.
Yeah, I agree, but I totally
and now
agree.
We're talking about Crimea, about some other places in Kharkov. No, let it be and finish it.
But
it's very simple.
Sorry, Mr. Marinakis.
That's how I see it.
Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he is willing to have an immediate ceasefire, right? Somebody else is refusing to do that because that other person thinks he can continue to make territorial gains in Ukraine. There's one person and one person only who is preventing what you want, which is an end to the war, and that is Putin. It's only Putin. The only way to stop this thing is to put more pressure on him. Zelensky said he wants an immediate ceasefire.
Okay, let's move on from this topic.
Unless you're saying the Ukrainians should surrender.
We'll never get to the end of the debate on this topic. So
I want to win this debate.
I invite both of you.
I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in compromise. I really want you to understand. I really want you to understand there is no logic There is no, I'm sorry, I love you, and I'm happy that you've invited me to your conference. I think this is a fantastic moment, but you are wrong. You really are wrong.
No.
And it would be a tragedy for the world.
You said,
You
said that you love democracy. Ask our audience, what do they think?
I know,
they want this war to be stopped, they want the compromise, what do they want? Answer.
Well, I don't think, I'm sure there are many people in this room who want and who are sympathetic, there always have been, just as there are many people in India who always have been sympathetic to the Russian point of view, and I understand your argument about the former Soviet Union. I don't have to agree.
Okay, we have just have time for one last question before everybody's going to start consuming their own stomachs. So I just want to ask, with their excitement, I want to ask a very quick one for you, and I want to sort of fairly brief
gnawing his own
answer
entrails.
from each. The first point I would make, you raised this, Boris, in your speech. You talked about the difference between the open society and the closed society, and the difference between autocracy, democracies. And this is a sort of dividing line between dark and light that we've lived with all of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
I wonder whether shadows are beginning to move across that borderline, and whether the distinction between the two is becoming harder to find, and whether the enemies of democracy are less on that dark side than we imagine, and more within democracies themselves. So I want to ask you, I'll start with you, Evangelos, because Greece, I think to most people outside the country at least, seems to be going through a period of tremendous stability. The current government in its second term, quite possibly heading for a third term, is producing growth rates that are the envy of many other countries in Europe, and has been doing consistently. What are your feelings about the political situation as things stand at the moment in Greece, and the safety of Greek democracy, which we've been talking about, but just generally the situation in Greece politically at the moment?
You mentioned indexes, and we have seen that indexes are doing very well because we compare them with the bottom. And of course, whatever you compare with the bottom, there is only one way, is up. But on the other hand, a family, the average Greek wage earner from the 20th of the month is suffering because the income is not enough to cover the essential needs. All essential needs, we see the prices going sky high, and the real income, as I said, for the average Greek wage earner is diminishing. Yeah. So this is something that the government hasn't been very successful and has not protected Greek people because as per Eurostat, for example, we are the last country with Bulgaria having the worst real income index. So this is something that is a real problem that most of the Greeks are facing, and this is something that the government should take serious and radical measures to solve it. So that's one of the problems. The second problem is that we see a lot of corruption scandals like OPEKP, and we see that instead of having a government that can try to solve these scandals and this corruption and let the judges do their work, we see that maybe there is a cover-up. Of course, this doesn't help. And because of all these events, we see that the polls for the government right now is extremely low. So I'm not so optimistic as you are about a third term, unless we see radical changes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. Boris, finally with you.
Can I just add something to that? As somebody who's contributed very substantially to the Greek economy over the summer, a lot. I just want to say, look, I've been coming. I love this place. So it's in my heart so much, and I you know infinitely more than I do. But I still see a lot more prosperity, a lot more creativity than I remember when I first started coming here in the 1970s. And admittedly, that was a different epoch, but this country is changing, and I'm very optimistic about Greece.
But you
I
come
really
at
am.
the right time. You come in the summertime.
Okay.
And of course, there is a lot of prosperity.
It is beautiful, but it's beautiful all year round.
You have the right impression.
It's beautiful all year round.
And you come from England, so
Yeah, it's terrible.
summertime in Greece may be particularly attractive.
I know.
Let me just finish with you, Boris, with one question here. One of the threats, I think, to democracy is being undermined from within.
Oh yes, you mentioned
as I
this,
said.
yes.
And one of the ways in which that has been happening is this move towards populism, the move towards using democracy's own tools and own institutions for more marginal groups to gain power.
Wait a moment. Let's just hang on. Did you hear what he just said? More marginal groups are using democracy to gain power. I mean, what a shocking thing to do, to use a democratic system to achieve authority in a country. To say and do things that liberal-minded people like you and me, or intelligentsia like everybody in this room, might not necessarily like or approve of. And what is going on, what populism is showing, is the failure of the elites to listen to what people really want. And your point about incomes is absolutely true. We've got to think about what's wrong with our whole West European economic model, because it's not doing well by comparison with the United States, not at all. We've got to learn from what's happening in the United States. And when people start saying that they don't want to see their kids undercut for their jobs or their homes or their doctors' surgery appointments by people coming into the country, rather than getting angry with them and saying that they're wrong and that they're evil and racist and so on, we've got to listen to them and we've got to address the problem. And so, I don't think what's happening is anti-democratic. I think it just shows we've got to focus on the issues. And I really that's why I tried to make that point about North Korea. There is no moral equivalence. There is no moral equivalence between Greece or Britain or the United States and North Korea or Russia or China.
But there is
really is not.
There is equivalence.
And we'd be insane if we start making that argument. We are insane.
If you've lost the most extreme case, then of course there is no moral equivalence. But there are shades of democratic adherence all the way across Europe and all the way around the world. There are plenty of countries not so far away from our own.
There was a country not far from where I live where the elites tried to resist the result of a referendum. They did. They anti-democratically, egged on by The Economist, they tried to stop Brexit going through. They did, didn't you? And that was
personally. But,
well, no, not you.
There was.
But that's the truth, and that wound people up, and that was anti-democratic. So look, I think that you've got to be. I don't think that Donald Trump is an autocrat. I don't think that he will try to stay in office after the end of his term. Absolutely not. And as I said earlier on, if you think about what happened in that, everybody says we're seeing a new age of strongman politics, and look at Trump. Well, actually, he's 70, whatever it is, 8, 9 years old. He spent 4 years fighting for every single vote. And he won the popular vote. And as I said, nobody thought he was going to, or nobody in Washington thought he was going to. That was democracy. The economists may not like it. You may not like the cut of Donald Trump's jib, as we say. You may find him aesthetically in some way displeasing with his, whatever it is you just don't like about him. People have a kind of allergy. I have a sort of some weakness in my character, which makes me like him. Okay? I like the way he speaks his mind.
The question isn't really about one's appeal, how he appeals to us. It's what he does with the power that he has when he has it, and how he uses the.
Like some of it I like, some of it I don't like. But that's the same with it.
Okay, Evangelos, you have a point.
I think that in order to judge, we need to see the outcome.
You need to. Sorry.
We need to see the outcome of these discussions, of the peace talks. And then we can judge him if what he does is right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask also, Boris, looking back what is happening in England in the last 3-4 years with the Brexit, you think that if we had a referendum today in England, what was the outcome?
There is not, I can tell you, there is not a cat's chance in Hades that the British people will vote to go back into the EU. I'll tell you why. Because not a cat's chance. I mean it. You'd be asking us, the British taxpayer, to give to Brussels, which still hasn't had its accounts signed off after decades, right? Whatever it was, 20 billion, but it would be more by now, a year in taxpayers' money, 25 billion, 30 billion, right? At the same time, you'd be asking us to go back into a system where the laws can't be changed, where they're made by the EU. Number 3, you'd be asking us to give up the legal sovereign control of our borders at a time when that is the number 1 issue for most voters in Britain. And number 4, you'd be asking us to give up our currency, give up the pound sterling, because that's the rules in favor of the euro, because those are the rules of the EU. It just isn't going to happen. And I think we should, as I say, I think there have been lots of areas where Brexit has been extremely positive. And you look at things like AI, I was mentioning AI, the UK is now much more aligned with the US than it is with the EU. And I think that's a good thing. On Ukraine, which I know I may be in disagreement with lots of people in this room, I don't care. On Ukraine, the whole policy was controlled by France and Germany. This ghastly Minsk agreement. You remember that? Who was running the Ukraine policy? It was France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia. That was the whole Normandy process. And coming out of the EU enabled us to do things differently. We've done lots of other things differently. And I think that's what you need in a globalized economy. We don't need, why do we have European standards for children's toys and motor and cars, carburetors or whatever, that are different from American standards or safety standards? Do we care more about our children than Americans do? It's rubbish. It's rubbish. We need transatlantic free trade. That's what we need. And that's what we should be going for. Anyway, I've said my piece. That'll do.
Well, on that note, there is so much more that we could talk about, but I'm afraid
we've got to let these good people have their dinner.
We don't have time.
Yeah, no, that's right. What time is it in Greece?
Hungry time, food time. So please join me. Enjoy your meal. Do join us again tomorrow for the full event. But in the meantime, join me in thanking our excellent speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.